Now then, final topic, and this is not necessarily rideshare related because this isn't a rideshare channel anymore. We just happen to have a couple of topics to talk about. But since we are talking about the pandemic, one thing that has definitely changed about the pandemic is how we work. Now, Mark, I know what you did for work. I'm not going to share anyone what it was. So this might not, strictly speaking, relate to you, but, you know, full disclosure, everyone, I did get a 9-to-5 job when the pandemic began. You know, just, you know, YouTube revenue dropped. You know, you do what you have to do.
Well, you know, my what I did no longer was being done during the pandemic. You know,
I do, but just in case you want to go back to doing it, if it's ever allowed again, I don't, you know, don't want to burn any, don't want to prevent that from happening. But
and if you guys are wondering, I was a dancer for Chippendales.
Yeah, that's not true. He was a dancer for Hooters, but you know, I was trying not to. But anyway, one of the things that has happened is the work from home model, because, you know, people had to separate. And companies, you know, the thing is, we live in a great technological world. We've got cloud computing. We've got, you know, Google. We've got Apple products. Microsoft doesn't suck anymore. And we've got desktops and laptops and tablets. Oh my Lord, so many ways our phones do more than the computers of 20 years ago. So people started working from home, those of them that could, because who wants to completely shut down if you don't have to? And the thing is, for over a year, this has, I think the verdict is in. It has worked great. Studies have shown that people working from home are mostly more productive. It saves a ton of gas. It's better for the environment because people aren't driving. And a lot of companies were saying, you know, yeah, this is probably the way of the future. We're going to continue doing this long after this pandemic is over. But that didn't end up being the case. In fact, a lot of companies, particularly places like JP Morgan and at first Google, actually started pulling everybody back to the office. Like, you're expected to come back to work. People were moving. They were relocating, getting better houses at cheaper prices because they could take the work with them, and it did not affect their work productivity at all. Now, on a side note, if you did relocate and didn't verify with your employers that you could do that, and that's probably on you. I'm sorry to say. Make sure you can actually live somewhere in the long term before you make any drastic life-altering decisions. But nevertheless, a lot of companies, including the one that I work for, who, by the way, do not have this stance, were saying that, you know, they were going to do this long term. But a lot of companies are now changing the tune on that. They want people to come back into the office. They want people to be part of the company culture once more. Even WeWork CEO, and I made a video about this that's going to go up on Monday because this was just a stupid thing for him to say, considering the business WeWork is in, said that people who work from home are less motivated to work and they don't take their jobs seriously. And yet, the last year and a half, hey, a lot of these industries were working great, even with work from home. Now, it is true that some people would prefer the office space, and it is true that some people probably are more productive in the office because they get too distracted at the home. Personally, I work so much better at home. In fact, how many years when I do like my own entrepreneurial stuff, am I working at home, doing my own stuff? I think work from home is great. But now employees are feeling burned. They're complaining that their companies lie to them. They are complaining that their companies are not taking their needs seriously because, for example, mothers are more free to take care of their newborns with the work from home business model, and they just don't understand why companies are just so insistent that we got to go back to the office when, by all accounts, things have been working out great. So here's my question. This is, I guess, what the conversation is going to be. Like, Mark, why do you think companies had such an about face about remote work, and what kind of problems do you think? Because here's the thing. Well, I don't personally think that there's never putting a genie back in the bottle. I think that's a very illogical way of looking at things. Sometimes you make certain extreme concessions under circumstances, but in this case, people, it seemed to work for the most part, and the employees said that they would prefer that it continue to be this way. And companies are now really risking and angering their employees by not taking their feelings into consideration. And is work culture really that important? What do you think?
Depends what job you're doing. I mean, if you have to get up and make the donuts, yeah, you pretty much have to go into the office. If you're a cubicle person or a sweater lady, and a sweater lady is my term for those ladies who always put a sweater on the back of their swivel chair, So if you're a sweater lady, no, you can probably do that from home. Are you going to waste time at home? Yes, you're going to waste time at home. Have you ever worked in a cubicle office? People are always up. How often do you stick your head in the cubicle and the person's not there? They're up, they're wandering around, they're getting a drink, they're going to the bathroom, they're going to the break room, they're stopping, they're chatting with someone else. I got to ask Bob a question. The question is, hey, Bob, how'd your golf game go? What are you doing next weekend? How's the kids? How's the dog? How's your mother-in-law? It's just a different kind of screwing off. And I think depending on the job, if you're working phone rooms, if you're working scheduling for a company, you might as well be doing that from home. Mm-hmm. If you're doing training of some sort for an organization, maybe you have to be on site because these might be site-specific things, maybe not. I think there is a lot of engagement that is lost when you don't have face-to-face conversations. I think that there is some dynamics that fall to the wayside. I see value in it. I think, just like I said earlier, when we talk about there has to be one model or the other, I think that what we're going to find out is the best model is a hybrid. Maybe there's a few days you can be at home. There's other times we want you at the office, and here's why. That's my take. I think companies are, just like we talked about earlier, they're concerned about losing control. It's difficult to monitor a employee when they're not on site. And sometimes by the time you monitor by the progress they make and how productive they are, now it's too late because they're unproductive and you've wasted all this time. When if they were on site, maybe you could make a little course adjustment. I don't know. I think it depends on what kind of business it is and what kind of job it is myself. Yeah. If you're an Uber driver, you're not doing that virtually from home. By the way, I got a really good video coming up about your favorite company, Tesla, and an automatic car. And
I can't wait. Story. I can't wait to watch it. Well, it's funny that you mentioned the not being able to monitor remotely because, and I'm not going to say who I'm working for, everyone. I'm not even going to tell you what I do, only to say that it's a very unexciting job that pays very well. And that's all I'll say about it. But they started letting go of people who had been there for years. And it wasn't because they were struggling financially. It was because now that they were looking at the pure metrics on what their production was, they started realizing that some of these people were not producing nearly as well as they could have been for a long time. And so they cut them loose. Now, for those reasons, this company says that work from home is more or less here to stay. They are going to have a hybrid model, and in some cases, you might have to come into the office for certain things. But they were like, nope, we can monitor you better remotely. Now, I have a friend who has been working remotely long before the pandemic. He is disabled, and as a result, it's like a hassle for him to actually go to the office. So he's worked from home for years, finally retired during the pandemic. And he said something that I think is probably true. He said, the vast majority of people are able to work from home and would be able to do so with no interruption to their workflow, if not better. And the primary reason they don't is because the companies simply don't trust them.
Mr. Spacely always wanted George Jetson to come in, even though they talk to each other over a picture phone. Figure that out.
Yeah, no, that's funny. The Jetsons. Yeah, because, why can't George Jetson work from home? All he does is press a button, but they don't want him to press the button from home, although the Jetsons didn't predict smartphones. Maybe a rebooted Jetsons, George can start the machine on an app. Who knows? But
touch screen instead of a push button.
Yeah, but I am kind of wondering if that's kind of what's going on. If there's now like a power control, like they were forced to send people home because the government stated that you had to stay a certain feet apart. It did work for them. Many companies even said that, hey, the results were better than we could have happened. But then when push came to shove, it's like, now we want to reassert control of our employees. And the employees are basically saying, like, that's rather insulting to us because we have obviously done enough to keep our jobs and the company didn't go under and nothing really fell apart at the end of the day, but you're having us go back to the office. Like one of my friends said, yeah, now that I've been working from home for 8 months, obviously this was still middle pandemic. He's like, the only thing I don't do now is talk to coworkers, and I don't really need to do that to do my job. So if they make me go back to the office, it's going to feel more punitive than anything else.
Coworkers overrated.
Coworkers are, yeah, well, I don't want to. I like some of my coworkers. Honestly,
after you leave a company, other than maybe the first few months, how often do you really stay in contact with your coworkers? For the first month or two, you call them, you talk to them, you go out to lunch once or twice. After that 2 or 3 months, you're done. Cut the cord. You've left the nest, baby.
Well, the funny thing is that's not 100% true for me, because I actually had years ago, I was a delivery driver for Round Table Pizza. I guess a prelude to my Uber career. And my manager, Marco, who might actually be on this show one of these days, you never know, but we have stayed friends for more than 10 years. So it happens. That's one person.
Employee in 10 years you stayed in contact with.
Yeah, there's not, it's not like it's a lot of people. Oh yeah, by the way, Darcy says companies will save huge amount of money on toilet paper and space. Well, yeah, and that's the other thing. Like, one of the reasons my company, I think, basically decided they were going to stay hybrid is that they started hiring remote work exclusively, and they were able to expand their operations without opening a third office. And I don't think that was lost on them.
And parking and commute, and you don't have to buy coffee and donuts for the meeting. Yeah. And I'll tell you what, if you want to talk about a carbon footprint, think about all those employees that are burning all that gas, going to work and back. Those irresponsible companies, what are they thinking?
Well, and especially in California, LA, the traffic is it pollutes a lot, and B, it's just super, super annoying. Like, if I can avoid that as much as possible, that's great. So yeah, I think it's kind of, the biggest question mark was actually Google. I was surprised when Google, who was the first company to really do this, because they were by far the best equipped to go remote.
No kidding.
Yeah, no kidding. They were the first to really, they went hard. Like, you are expected back in the office. Now they backtracked a little bit on that, but the question was, why Google of all people? Because they have products that benefit. They sell more product when companies work remote. And here they are trying to lead the charge back into the office. You do know that that means less Google products are going to be sold, right? Like, why would they do that?
You stumped me with that question. I don't have an answer.
Yeah, I finally stumped it. We knew eventually it would happen. Eventually.
I know that you hoped I would go into one of my 4-minute diatribes, but no, I don't get it. I think the only thing I can say, it's control. It really is control. They feel that they're going to lose oversight.
Mm-hmm.
And like I said, it really should be production based, but sometimes it's too late then. When by the time someone has proven themselves to be unproductive, you've wasted a lot of time. And if you're in the office, you can say, "Hey, Bob, come on, get to it. Put the phone down." You know, you can't do that when they're virtual.
Well, yeah, you can. I mean, people. I communicate with my co-workers frequently on Slack, and we have each other's numbers. Where if it's really urgent, you can call them, or they can call you. I mean,
I'm not saying you don't have support. What I'm saying is, I can't look over the cubicle and make sure that my underling is doing their job. It's a little trickier when you're virtual. I'm not saying it's right. I'm saying that's the only thing that I can think that the companies they want to have. They want to have that iron fist. Yeah, they're used to it. They're acclimated to it. It's the way it's been since the dawn of time. And now we've changed that. We've changed it dramatically in a 1-year period.
Yeah, we found out that when employees are happier and more relaxed, most of them tend to produce.
Take it away.
So and actually that whole checking over the cubicle thing, it kind of depends what side of the cubicle you're on. Like if the person's monitor is facing away from you when you're
thinking the restrooms. I'm talking about their workspace.
No, some of these cubicles are set. I know what you're getting at, but some of these cubicles, I'm being difficult. What can I say?
I'm reminded when I was about 11 years old.
It's Mark's story time.
It's a good story though. We were at the Wisconsin State Fair Park, and I don't know, I was 11, 12, 13, something like that. And we had a little mob of kids we hung around with, right? And one of them went into the 20-stall bathrooms, right? And he went into the bathroom. The other one thought that he was going to play a joke, and he jumped up over the stall and said, "Hey, fat boy!" It was a grown man sitting in there. It wasn't even our buddy sitting down. So I'm flashbacking to that moment when I'm talking about looking over the cubicle.
Woo!
It was not fat boy in there.
No, it was not. No, it was not fat boy. Ooh, I just got demonetized.
Okay, maybe that story is so funny to everybody else, but in my memory, it's pretty hilarious.
Yeah. No, I agree. So
I guess you gotta know. You just have to know Jimmy C. What do you look like doing it? So
yeah, that kind of your story just reminded me of that joke on Animaniacs years ago, where one of the characters like, "Hey, knock knock, who's there? Max. Max who? Max wants to go crazy. I don't get it. You would if you understood knew who Max was, but I don't understand who Max is." Anyway, so the question now for all of you is, and by the way, I meant to mention,
why are you still watching us?
Yeah. People like Driver Steve could definitely benefit from remote work. So like some of these people who maybe have to do Uber because they can't do regular 9-to-5 job, remote work should provide that flexibility where they can now get stable employment again. And it's kind of a shame that that companies want to take that away. But anyway, what do you all think? First of all, do you work for a company that currently has remote work? And what's their stance on remote work? Are they going to try to take you back to the office? And what are your feelings about that? We would love to know. Comment below. Like, favorite, share, subscribe. And as always, flame responsibly.